Hi, I'm Jamie Kale Miller of Pandora Astrology here in Berkeley, California, and with me is...
Hey guys, it's Julia Mikos, and I'm joining in from San Francisco.
And today we want to talk with you about why and how 2021 is going to be so much better than 2020. And it really is time for some relief, isn't it? The pandemic hot degree has been pretty relentless. It's been being triggered by Jupiter and Mars, still going on. And it's going to go on through the end of the year when the pandemic hot degree expires, but it will expire during December. And that's just one of several reasons why 2021 is going to be so much better. So one of the chief values of astrology in general is that you can get a sense of when things have peaked, when you're sort of just still in the buildup, of a difficult experience, when it actually peaks, and when you can expect it to pretty much fade and drop off. Now, the pandemic hot degree is going to be live and in action throughout the year until the middle of December when it expires. But when it does, I think that we're going to start to feel a lot of relief right there. And I've said this before in other videos, which you can find in our playlist called The Astrology of Pandemic Year 2021. So that in itself is a pretty strong reason why 2021 is going to be better, because once Saturn leaves Capricorn and moves into Aquarius, it's going to really lighten up things quite a bit. So another reason why I think 2021 is going to be a lot better is that Jupiter usually is making aspects to other outer planets. And when it does that, sometimes it just intensifies what those outer planets are doing. And that's definitely been happening during 2020 as well. Jupiter has conjuncted the pandemic hot degree several times, and it's been moving in and out of conjunction with Pluto. So everything that Pluto is doing to kind of bring destruction and make rubble out of hierarchies in governments and everywhere that hierarchies happen. I mean, I think that Pluto in Capricorn has really brought us things like the visibility of corruption in governments around the world, the visibility of strong men, leaders around the world, along with things like the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter. And then Jupiter has just exacerbated all of these things. So Jupiter is not going to be doing that in 2021. It is not making any contacts to outer planets at all. It's not going to be blowing things up bigger out of proportion. And I think that is a source of relief. So we can expect the pressure to come off those two ways. Now, you may be curious about what actually will be happening in 2021, and I want to show you in this animatable wheel. And I'm going to start this to play. You're going to see the days scroll through all of 2021. You can watch the numbers go here, or more importantly, you can watch the planets move along their signs. And what I want you to notice is that two aspects are going to form this year, and they are both aspects that Saturn is forming with other slower moving planets. Saturn is going to come into a square with Uranus, and that happens pretty early in the year. It's going to make 3 passes. And I noticed that those 3 passes are on interesting dates. The first one happens near Valentine's Day. The second one happens near Juneteenth. The third one happens near Christmas. So that's an interesting observation. We'll say more about this as 2021 comes forward. We'll do a whole video about Saturn square Uranus. And then also Saturn's going to form a beautiful harmonious sextile to Chiron, which I think is going to be lovely and bring in a lot of healing. So let's watch this go forward. I'm hitting play. You're seeing the dates go, and look right there. Already during January, both of Saturn's aspects form. And right here you see that they're happening simultaneously around the middle of the month. Saturn comes into square with Uranus, it sextiles Chiron. Now let's continue to play. And you'll see Saturn move forward. And it's also going to turn retrograde. And you're going to see all of these planets to go retrograde in turn. And you'll know that because a little red RX symbol is going to appear. Now, there's Pluto going retrograde in May. And the next thing should be Saturn, and there it is later in May. And then Jupiter will go retrograde, and that happens in June, and followed by Neptune quite quickly, and then Chiron in July. You see that? And then Uranus right about there in August. So here you see that all of these planets are retrograde in August, and that can happen because they're all gathered within a third of the zodiac. And that's something that we'll say a little bit more about shortly, but I just want to continue playing this, and you're going to see them all go direct in turn, again beginning with Pluto. And so here we are in September, moving into October, and look, all the little RXs are disappearing. It's November now, moving into December, and the final passes of Saturn to Chiron and to Uranus happen during December, and Uranus is the last planet that is still retrograde by the end of the year. And I missed the middle of June contacts, but I think you get the general idea. And so, Julia, let's talk just a little bit. I don't want to give too much away because we are going to make more thorough videos about Saturn's contacts to Uranus and Chiron. But if you could just give the audience a bit of a little heads up about how these things are likely to feel.
Okay. Well, Saturn will be in the sign of Aquarius, and Aquarius is a very technical, scientific, progressive type of sign. And it's square to Uranus, which modern astrologers attribute as the ruler of Aquarius, I think is further emphasizing these themes. And a square from Saturn can definitely present a blockage, a challenge, a curbing. So part of me kind of wonders whether this sort of into next year, issues around technology in general, the tech industry, which is, the social media industry, the Google industry. I sound like such an old person, the Google industry. But, all those tech things, I think that they may come into focus during that time. Saturn can also represent government too. So perhaps a time of critical developments, trials and tests, in the technology world, perhaps even our government curbing certain tech parts of tech.
Yeah, so we may see more regulation of tech, particularly big tech, corporate tech, and also we may see some battles between, I would say, progressive versus conservative wings of government all over the world, not just in the U.S. where that battle just rages royally. But I think we're going to see that because this is a stressful square between Saturn and Uranus, and Uranus representing the forces of innovation and newness, cutting that edge, going where you've never gone before, a la Star Trek. And then Saturn represents the things that have come before and the old ways, the familiar ways.
Yeah.
So, yep. Now, but let's think for a moment about this Saturn sextile Chiron, because Chiron, as the wounded healer, is all about taking things that had been split and going places where there are schisms, bringing things back together and sealing it over and making it whole again. And that in a harmonious connection to Saturn, which, represents things like government, which represents things like, any place where there is hierarchy, for example, like the Catholic Church. So, Julia, what do you think about that harmonious connection?
I think that it, Chiron has been linked to immigration too, if we're talking about things on a big stage.
Yes.
So some potential of integration, as well as, and perhaps coming from sort of bigger governmental structures like the government itself, society at large, perhaps mending some of these issues as well. And perhaps even coming, because I mean, immigration, we've had immigration issues. Trump has made them the highlight of his campaigns, but also we have other sorts of COVID immigration issues where Americans can't travel to certain countries and the world is sort of being blocked up. Brexit, which, I mean, what the hell ever happened with that anyway? So perhaps the world will start to immigrate and kind of interconnect a little bit more smoothly next year.
That would be really nice. And I'm reminded of something else, which is that Chiron, as it moves along, is in the next couple of years going to come into a square with Pluto. And Pluto, of course, is heading towards its return in the United States chart. And Chiron and Pluto are squared in the United States chart to begin with. And I think that has everything to do with race relations in the USA. And that when Chiron comes into its square with Pluto in the next couple of years, and believe me, people, we will be reporting that when it happens, I think that we can expect, you know, some serious milestones in race relations in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult for sure.
The healing of intergenerational trauma.
Wow, that would be amazing, but it's not going to be easy because it's a square. Yeah. So one more thing, Julia, that I would love you to speak to is this this gathering of all of these retrograde planets, which, as I mentioned before, can happen. They can all be retrograde at once because they are all contained within a trine. And during August, the sun is over here. And so it's about to move through the zone where all of these planets are opposite to it, and that's why they can all be retrograde at once. So what do you think it feels like? Now this is going to be a background feeling, right? This is a background feeling, like not something that's really in your face, but just sort of a general feeling that characterizes those months. What do you think that background feeling is going to be with all those planets retrograde at the same time?
Yeah, well, the outer planets represent sort of the broad social and structural forces of our lives, government, society, culture, all of these bigger things. And when they go retrograde, they're further away from the sun, but they're closer to Earth, and also closer to the moon too. So it's, I think what generally this can mean is that there can be a lot of challenges, blockages of these systems working effectively. During a lot of retrogrades, it's generally not a good time to start new things, because when you start something new, basically it's like you can think of it as having, I mean, that's where electional astrology comes from. You have an inception chart from any kind of new beginning.
Right.
So if you want to expand business, start a new business, start any type of new project or venture in your life.
Or buy a home or even buy a car.
Exactly. The chart's going to have a lot of retrogrades in it. And retrogrades just, I don't think they're necessarily bad, you know, because, but they just mean that things might, that they're a bit unpredictable.
You're sort of asking for things to be more complicated. So don't, you know, don't engage in any big contracts. Like, don't buy a home during the summer of 2021. Don't buy a car. Don't begin a new construction project, you know, sign the contracts for that or even break ground for that. Anything like that that you want to do, start it either earlier in the year or more towards the close of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the message there. Well, let me just take a peek at my notes and see if there's anything here that I didn't say. I think that's pretty much covering it. Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and you can find it on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, and it'll be in the 2020 news playlist, because, even though it pertains to 2021. And you'll also find it in the September 2020 news playlist. And you can always find the news of the month on our website, pandoraastrology.com. Just add monthly-forecast to that. And you also may not know that we do horoscopes. And your horoscopes are really enjoyable and really informative. And you should always check your rising sign first, and then your sun sign. So until next month, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.